thank you for joining us in our presentation of Amerigo Resources. We are a long-term, profitable copper producer in Chile. And one of our key differentiators is that we produce copper by treating tailings, which is essentially the leftover material from mining processes. This is quite unique and very exciting, as the work that we do is essentially the transformation of an environmental liability into an economic asset. Please refer to our forward-looking statements when reviewing this presentation. So who is Amerigo Resources? Amerigo is a Canadian public company founded in 2003 to acquire and operate a copper producer in Chile called MVC. In addition to producing copper, MVC also produces molybdenum as a byproduct. Now, Amerigo has several key differentiators. First of all, we are not a typical mining company. We produce copper by processing tailings, and this makes us more like a copper factory than a copper mine. In our case, we process the tailings from the largest underground copper mine in the world, which is called El Tiniente. El Tiniente is the most important of the 7 mines owned and operated by the world's largest copper producer, Codelco, all of which are in Chile. We are a historical copper producer. By the time it was bought by Amerigo, MVC already had a long operating record as it began producing copper and processing tailings from El Tiniente in 1992. Our current contract with El Tiniente goes to 2037. This contract has been extended on various occasions before, and given the successful relationship between MVC and Codelco, we expect it to be further extended in the future. In addition to the strength and value of the MVC operation, we see other growth opportunities for Amerigo, which we will be discussing in this presentation. This photo here shows our tailings operation at MVC, where we're essentially breaking down tailings with high-pressure water monitors, creating a slurry which is transported to the MVC plant for processing and producing copper concentrate. A series of expansions at MVC since it was bought by Amerigo have seen production increase from original levels of 26 million pounds of copper to 55 million pounds last year. And for 2021, we have a guidance of production of more than 61 million pounds of copper. In Q1 2021, we fully met our quarterly production guidance, and our operations team is laser focused to continue to meet guidance as the year progresses. An important point to mention when discussing our operation is that our single most significant cost is power. And we have in place a long-term supply agreement for power supplied to MVC. It also runs to 2037, and it competitively locks in our major cost. We have a strategic relationship with the world's strongest copper partner, Codelco. Codelco has 11% of global copper production and 10% of known copper reserves. There cannot be a stronger partner in the copper sector. The basis of our operation is a long contract with El Tiniente that currently runs to 2037, and which gives us the right to process all the fresh tailings from El Tiniente's current operation, as well as the rights to higher grade historical tailings that were deposited from 1935 to 1986 by El Tiniente in 2 deposits called Cauquenes and Colihues. In return for the contractual rights to their tailings, El Tiniente receives a royalty based on production and on copper price. Other benefits to El Tiniente from the MVC operation are additional production to report as their own, and of course, a material reduction of environmental footprint through cleaner tailings. Our business model is very simple. We maximize production by managing a mix of fresh and historic tailings, and we manage costs in order to maximize margin. MVC has a low capex requirement. Our sustaining capex is in the range of $6 million a year, which is unheard of in the mining sector. So to recap, the key differentiators for Amerigo are that we are not a traditional mine. We're more similar to a copper factory. We produce copper from tailings. We are a historical copper producer that has been in production for 28 years and has a life of mine, or the equivalent of life of mine, to 2037. We have a simple business model with low capex requirements, and we have a strategic relationship with the world's largest copper producer. Our business model thrives under strong copper prices. Amerigo is a pure copper play, highly levered to the price of copper. You can see in this table the strong sensitivity of copper price to EBITDA. At a copper price of $3, EBITDA for this year, given our 61 plus projection of copper production, millions of pounds of copper production, would be an EBITDA of $37 million. At a copper price of $4, which is essentially the copper price today when I'm recording this presentation, EBITDA would be $61 million. So this is a copper play that is substantially levered to copper price and performs extremely well financially under current copper price conditions. The operation at MVC is fully owned by Amerigo. We envision a growth strategy that builds up on MVC's successful business model because we know that this model addresses a major environmental issue within the mining industry. The business model has been tested over the low valleys of copper cycles, and we know that we have a number of different expansion opportunities ahead of us. In the near term, we are looking at the Tiniente's untapped historical tailings deposits. On a medium-term basis, we will be looking at the other 6 Codelco mines, and on a long-term growth basis, we will be looking at the major copper tailings deposits that are present throughout Chile. Amerigo's operations are focused on ESG in practice, not on paper. We are producing copper, which is a pillar of the emerging green economy. Our operation at MVC is minimizing environmental impact. And as I mentioned at the start of the presentation, we transform environmental liabilities into economic assets by reducing tailings footprints and reducing environmental risk. Amerigo's strong operational results are boosted into significant cash generation capacity at strong copper prices. We are very excited about the outlook for copper. We think that we're entering a new cycle of strength for copper prices based on the significant push for greener infrastructure, transportation, and power generation that will require very substantial amounts of copper. And the increase in demand on its own would be a price catalyst. However, we also see constraints on the supply side. We face the legacy of a decade of underinvestment in the copper sector, with no significant mines coming online and with existing mines facing lower grades and a decline in current mine production. This will translate to a supply and demand imbalance that will be solved by price. It is a great time to be a copper producer. You can refer to our capitalization table and to a comparatives table when you review the presentation again, but I would like to use my final minutes to stress out the investment proposition for Amerigo. First and foremost, we believe that copper has entered a new multi-year bullish cycle. As I mentioned before, it's a great time to be in the copper sector. Amerigo is a pure play copper producer that is highly levered to the copper price. We are a low capex operation with predictable EBITDA and cash flow. We're strategically positioned with the world's largest copper producer in the world's premier copper producing region, which is Chile. We produce copper in a very environmentally sustainable way, and we have significant growth opportunities throughout Chile. Our final slides have a summary of our management team and our board of directors. And I would like you to thank you again for your interest in Amerigo Resources.